You know, that massive life goal you're stressing over right now, like the one that just keeps you up at night.
Oh, yeah, we all have that one thing.
Right. We are so deeply conditioned to treat that goal like we're climbing a sheer cliff face. You grit your teeth, you scrape your knees, you sacrifice your free time, and the world just tells you, to push harder.
Exactly, just grind it out.
But what if that sheer cliff face is like a complete illusion?
Right.
What if the very act of struggling is the exact thing keeping you from reaching the top?
It's a huge paradigm shift.
It really is. So welcome to this deep dive. Today we're taking Dr. David R. Hawkins' framework of spiritual surrender, specifically chapters 7, 8, and 9 from his book Letting Go, and we're taking it out of the theoretical realm and directly into the trenches of your daily life.
Yes, because for you listening right now, we know you're already walking this path.
Exactly.
You understand the overarching concepts in letting go. So our mission today is pure application.
Pure application. I love that.
We're breaking down the exact mechanics of how the three things we think we need to succeed, which are desire, anger, and pride, how they're actually the hidden roadblocks keeping us totally stuck.
Yeah, and the key to applying this work is understanding that desire, anger, and pride, they aren't isolated emotions, right?
Not at all. No, they operate in a highly predictable, causal chain reaction.
Right.
And when you understand the underlying energetic mechanics of how one triggers the next, you gain the ability to short-circuit that entire cycle of suffering before it even takes hold.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the root of that chain, which is desire.
The big one.
Because desire is the engine driving so much of our initial frustration,
Yeah, absolutely.
We've all been sold this cultural script that says the only way to get what I want is to desire it intensely. We think desire is the fuel.
But when we look through the lens of Hawkins' work, desire is actually a declaration of lack.
Wait, a declaration of lack?
Precisely. If we break it down linguistically and energetically, the phrase I desire literally translates in the subconscious to I do not have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The moment you operate from a space of I do not have this thing, you instantly introduce this psychic distance between yourself and the goal.
It's like you're pushing it away.
Exactly. It's an energetic denial that what you want is already available to you.
Okay, I see.
And that perceived distance becomes the very obstacle that consumes all your energy. You're basically spending your life force maintaining the illusion of separation rather than just stepping into the goal.
So if desiring is essentially a continuous broadcast of lack, then holding on to desire is literally generating the roadblock.
You're building your own wall.
Right. But the immediate pushback you always hear, and I hear this all the time, is, well, if I drop all my desire, won't I just become totally apathetic? Like I'll just end up a couch potato.
The classic fear.
Right. We have this deeply ingrained fear that without the Protestant work ethic of grim, painful struggle, the world just, stops spinning.
It is the most common point of resistance to true surrender. I hear it constantly. But the shift here is about changing your fundamental view of reality.
Okay, how so?
Well, the grim struggle model assumes the universe is this negative, stingy parent, and you have to wrestle your inheritance away from it.
Right, like you have to fight for every scrap.
Exactly. But surrender assumes an unconditionally giving universe.
Oh, it's like that.
Yeah. When you let go of the desperate, clenching wanting, you don't lose the goal. You just choose the goal, you visualize it lovingly, and you allow it to manifest without the resistance of lack.
That perfectly frames the anecdote Hawkins shares about the New York City apartment.
Oh, it's such a brilliant illustration of these exact mechanics.
It really is. So he needed a pied-à-terre in the city, but, his list of requirements was just borderline absurd for the New York real estate market.
Completely absurd.
Yeah, it had to be on Fifth Avenue, exactly in the 70s block, right by a Central Park entrance.
And up high, right?
Yeah. Yes. At least 8 or 9 floors up to avoid the street noise. Rear facing, 2.5 rooms, and the absolute kicker rent controlled.
Which is just impossible. Anyone who knows New York knows that the rational mind says you have to spend 6 months aggressively hunting, stressing, fighting other renters for a place like that.
Exactly. The rational mind demands struggle.
Right. But let's look at the actual application of the technique here. He wrote that exact highly specific goal down, and then he went to work.
Just a normal day.
Yep, a packed day full of meetings and patience. But throughout the day, whenever that familiar, tense feeling of wanting the apartment arose,
He didn't dwell on it.
no, he simply acknowledged the feeling and let it go. He surrendered the energy behind it.
Right.
By the afternoon, he'd become completely non-attached. The desire was totally surrendered, meaning his internal state was genuinely okay if he got it and completely okay if he didn't.
And the causality here is what's so striking to me. At 4:30 p.m., entirely out of the blue, he gets this sudden impulse to drive into the city.
Just a nudge.
Right. He hits zero traffic. He finds a parking spot right in front of a real estate office on Lexington Avenue, which, let's be honest, is a miracle in itself.
A literal miracle in New York.
Yes. So he walks in, states this absurdly specific list to the agent, and the agent says they just had a listing come in 1 hour ago, matching every single criterion, down to the $500 rent control.
It's wild.
He signs the lease on the spot. 24 hours from intention to reality.
See, what is crucial to understand is that it wasn't the frenzied, desperate desiring that made it happen.
The desiring would have blonded it.
Exactly. It might have made him miss the impulse to drive to the city, or it would have manifested a dozen frustrating roadblocks. Once the emotional block of "I don't have this" was cleared, the seemingly impossible became possible with zero effort.
Okay, so if we know that getting what we want is actually faster and easier when we drop the desperate desire, why is it so agonizingly difficult for us to just let go of wanting? Like, it feels like we cling to it for dear life.
Because in most cases, we aren't actually desiring the object itself. We are desiring the glamour we've attached to it.
The glamour.
Yeah, Hawkins draws on Alice Bailey's concept of glamour here, which is this romanticized, exaggerated aura we project onto our goals.
Okay, I think I follow.
Like, we don't just want the corner office, right? We believe that acquiring the corner office will magically elevate us to some permanent higher state of worthiness and happiness.
Oh, wow. So we're buying into a fake promise.
Completely.
Hawkins points out the reality of that executive who grinds for years to get the corner office, picturing this endless stream of admiration. But the reality of the object, once he actually has it, is vicious corporate competitiveness.
And paranoid attacks from rivals.
Right. And he ends up so drained, he has zero energy left for his actual life. Or there's the example of the woman who buys the incredibly expensive designer dress for a gala.
Oh, expecting to be the center of adulation.
Yes, exactly. But instead, she gets a few passing comments, maybe some envious glares, and goes home arguing with her escort exactly like she always does. The glamour was just a complete fiction.
Exactly. Glamorization is living at a level of fantasy. And society is constantly catering to this dishonesty.
Oh, absolutely.
We're bombarded with a marketing that promises to make us more important, more lovable, and more significant than we feel we are simply by acquiring an object.
It's exactly like those old cowboy commercials for cigarettes.
Right.
We aren't buying the tobacco. We are buying the ragged, cool, suave, in-control personality that we project onto the cowboy.
Yes.
But in reality, when the transaction is done, we don't become the cowboy. We just end up holding a cigarette and a lighter.
That is the perfect analogy. So the practical application for you listening is this. You have to ruthlessly dissect the exaggeration away from your goal.
Strip away the glamour.
Yes. Ask yourself what you're actually expecting this object or achievement to do for you emotionally. When you relinquish the glamour, the fantasy of how it's going to save you, surrendering the actual desire becomes incredibly easy.
Wow.
And this leads to a profound shift in how we operate in the world, moving from the paradigm of having to doing to being.
Having, doing, being. If we break down that progression, it really seems like it requires a total rewiring of our internal operating system.
It does. I mean, at lower levels of consciousness, we operate under the delusion that our inner value comes from what we have.
The stuff.
Right, the stuff. As we evolve a bit, we shift to thinking our value comes from what we do, like our job title, our societal output.
Okay. Yeah.
But at the highest level of mastery, it is entirely about what we are, the level of being.
So operating at the level of being means your subconscious microexpressions, your body language, the boundaries you set, all of it naturally aligns with that state without forcing it.
Without faking it, yeah.
If you want to be a charismatic, successful person, you don't need the fake props of glamour. You don't need the flashy car to force people to take you seriously.
Precisely. You simply surrender your feelings of smallness, you let go of the blocks, and step into being that person.
Just be it.
Yeah. When you inhabit that state of being, it automatically organizes your physical reality and your activities to reflect it. People respond to the undeniable energy of who you are, not the exhausting performance of what you're doing.
That reframes so much of the daily grind.
Mm.
But let's follow that causal chain reaction we talked about earlier. Let's say We haven't mastered desire yet.
Okay.
We're completely caught up in the glamour. We're desperate for the goal, and then it gets blocked. We don't get the promotion. The relationship fails. What happens to all that frustrated energy?
It ferments.
We hit anger.
That is the inevitable result. Frustrated desire instantly morphs into anger. And, for individuals who are actively engaged in spiritual growth, anger is often treated as this shameful failure.
Oh, totally. We repress it because it feels undignified.
Right. But Hawkins is unambiguous about the mechanics here. Suppressed anger doesn't just disappear. It is highly destructive to your physical and emotional health.
Because the energy is still there.
Yes, the energy remains trapped, toxifying your entire system.
So we obviously shouldn't repress it, but we also can't just unleash it on a boss or a partner without destroying our lives.
Yes.
We have to somehow redirect that raw energy.
Yes, and that is where the technique gets highly practical. Because anger contains a massive, dense amount of energy.
It's powerful.
It is. Instead of festering in resentment because your boss passed you over, you make a conscious decision to harness that fire.
Okay, huh?
You use the sheer force of it to fuel your ambition.
Right.
You channel it into creating a stellar project that undeniably proves your worth, or you use that late-night adrenaline to update your resume and secure a much better position elsewhere.
So you stop letting the fire burn down your own house and you put it in the engine to drive you forward.
You use the energy on your own behalf.
That is incredibly empowering. And it perfectly addresses a very specific, quiet kind of anger that Hawkins highlights, which I think every single listener can relate to, the self-sacrifice trap.
Oh, man. It is one of the most common and corrosive dynamics in any long-term relationship.
The scenario he describes is so relatable. The wife spends the entire day meticulously cleaning the house, right? Giving up her reading time, canceling lunch with friends.
Right.
Meanwhile, the husband is fighting terrible commuter traffic, dealing with an irate boss and gritting his teeth, thinking of how hard he works for his family.
They're both sacrificing.
Yes. And they both finally come home. Both are silently brooding. Both are mentally tallying up their immense quote-unquote sacrifices. And both are absolutely furious that the other person isn't falling over themselves to acknowledge them.
And then they end up sitting on the couch watching TV in this freezing, cold silence.
Exactly.
Well, if we look at the energetic reality of what is happening in that living room, it's not about unappreciated nobility. Self-sacrifice, when it's done with an expectation of a return, breeds pressure.
Interesting.
And expectations are felt by the other person on a subconscious level as emotional blackmail.
Emotional blackmail. That totally reframes the martyr complex.
It really does.
You aren't actually being selfless. You are holding the other person hostage with unvoiced demands. Like, the unconscious threat is, give me the compliment and validation I want, or I will punish you by withdrawing my affection.
Exactly. And human beings instinctively, automatically resist being emotionally blackmailed.
Because it feels manipulative.
It feels like a violation of free will. So the partner feels this heavy, demanding energy pulling at them, and they just shut down.
Even if you manage to force an acknowledgement out of them through guilt, it's going to be a begrudging, disgruntled one that doesn't actually satisfy your need for validation anyway.
Right. It feels hollow.
So if our unspoken expectations are acting as emotional blackmail, breeding this chronic resentment, how do we practically dissolve it? How do we break the standoff?
By taking the exact same physical action, but consciously elevating it from the heavy level of sacrifice to the light level of a loving gift.
A loving gift.
Yeah. You clean the house or you go to work purely for the joy of being generous to your family with absolutely zero strings attached. The moment you drop the expectation of a reward, you completely dissolve the other person's subconscious resistance.
That reminds me of the hilarious boy-girl theory anecdote Hawkins uses about the Mexican shirts.
Yes. Oh, I love that one.
It perfectly proves how expectations push people away. So a man brings back two very loud, unique shirts from a trip to Mexico.
Right.
On day one, he wears the first shirt with this intense, subtle pride. He has an inner expectation that people are going to notice him, that they're going to validate how cultured and cool he is.
He's desperate for it.
Yeah. He purposefully holds on to that prideful expectation all day. And the result? Not a single person in his office makes a comment.
Because they unconsciously felt the vacuum of his neediness. They felt the emotional blackmail of his expectation, and they naturally resisted giving him the energy he was demanding.
Right. Then on day two, he wears the second shirt. But this time, he actively applies the work.
He shifts his state.
Yes, he totally surrenders his vanity and his expectation of being noticed.
Yeah.
He reaches a state of genuine internal surrender, deciding it's completely okay if they notice and completely okay if they don't.
And what happens?
That day, practically everyone stops him to ask about the shirt and shower him with compliments. The mechanism is wild. We literally get what we want the exact moment we stop insisting on it.
It is a brilliant illustration of how energy works in social dynamics. And, for handling chronic, deep-seated resentment, Hawkins offers an even more profound tool, which is acknowledgement.
How does that work?
This requires a radical shift in perspective. It means viewing everyone in your life as a mirror. That scowling neighbor or that nagging spouse, they're almost always reflecting back to you something that you haven't acknowledged in yourself.
Oh.
Or they're mirroring the fact that they feel entirely unacknowledged by you for their contributions.
There's a reflection.
Exactly. When you surrender your own defensive feelings and take a moment to mentally, internally acknowledge their value, the nagging almost miraculously stops.
And we really need to emphasize that this isn't just about preserving relationships or, feeling warm and fuzzy. There are hard, measurable physical health implications to holding on to resentment.
Oh, absolutely. It's science.
Yeah, Hawkins brings up the Stanford Forgiveness Project, which worked with parents in Ireland whose children were tragically killed in political violence.
Heartbreaking.
Truly. But when these parents were guided through the process of truly letting go of their bitter resentment toward the enemy, their cardiac health, physical stamina, and overall vitality significantly and measurably improved.
The science of muscle testing proves this instantly. The dense energy of anger and resentment immediately shuts down the body's meridian energy flow, and it desynchronizes the brain hemispheres.
You're physically weaker.
You become physically weak the moment you hold a resentful thought. We pay for chronic anger with systemic sickness and premature death. The reality is stark anger ultimately kills the angry person, not the enemy.
That is a deeply sobering reality check.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's continue the progression. Let's say we've done the heavy lifting. We've stopped blocking our goals with desperate desire.
Right.
We've harnessed our anger and stopped poisoning our bodies with resentment. We've achieved real success and stability. That brings us to the final boss.
Your final boss.
We are standing face to face with pride.
And pride is particularly insidious because in modern society, it is constantly praised and reinforced as a positive attribute.
That's exactly what makes it confusing. Like, we tell kids to take pride in their schoolwork. We take pride in our communities and our heritage. Why does this framework insist that pride is devoid of love and fundamentally destructive?
Well, we have to draw a very sharp line between genuine self-esteem and the energy of pride.
Okay, what's the difference?
True self-esteem is a quiet, unshakable inner awareness of your true value. It requires absolutely no defense. You simply know what you are.
It's grounded.
Yes. But the energy of pride is entirely different. It is characterized by a constant, exhausting need for external validation. It's built on ego inflation and the denial of our vulnerabilities. And this brings us to one of the most fundamental laws of consciousness from the book. Defensiveness invites attack.
Defensiveness invites attack. If you're defending it, you're broadcasting that it is vulnerable.
Exactly. Pride is inherently weak because it constantly demands to be defended. If you're operating in pride, you have to defend your lifestyle, the brand of clothes you wear, your political opinions, the neighborhood you live in.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. You make yourself endlessly vulnerable to the opinions of others. True humility, on the other hand, cannot be humiliated.
Wait, true humility cannot be humiliated.
Right. The truly humble person has nothing they feel the need to defend, so they simply don't register or experience critical attacks.
The contrast Hawkins provides between two very wealthy individuals illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, yes. The Canadian man.
Right. First, there's a Canadian man who is constantly subtly bragging about the price tags of everything he owns. He's entirely wrapped up in the energy of pride regarding his wealth.
Yep.
And because he is in pride, he is simultaneously in the energy of fear. He has an incredibly expensive, elaborate burglar alarm system for his home.
Because pride engenders guilt, and guilt unconsciously engenders the fear of being punished or experiencing loss.
His pride literally manifests the energetic vulnerability that requires the alarm system.
Compare that to the second wealthy individual he mentions.
Right, a woman with vast estates, fine art, and millions of dollars. But her internal state of mind is one of absolute simplicity. She simply takes quiet joy in the beauty of her surroundings.
And the alarms.
She has 0 burglar alarms on her estates. When someone pointed this out and asked about it, she just smiled and said, if somebody really needed something that much, they could have it. Because she held her possessions with appreciation rather than pridefulness, she was energetically completely invulnerable to theft, paranoia, and criticism.
It is never about what we have in the physical world. It's entirely about how we hold it in our consciousness. When we attach the ego's pride to our possessions, we become intensely possessive, and that heavy attachment inevitably brings the fear of loss.
And Hawkins points out how utterly absurd our modern attachments to pride have become. We are so obsessed with broadcasting our status that we pay fortunes just to have a designer's label visible on the outside of our clothes.
Oh, yeah.
He jokes that at the rate we're going, we might soon be carrying around designer rakes and shovels in our gardens just to show the neighbors how much we spent on yard work.
It is absurd. But, it is vital to recognize that this operates on both ends of the spectrum. Hawkins brilliantly calls out the phenomenon of reverse snobbery.
Oh man, the thrift store conquerors. We all know people who get intensely competitive and prideful over finding a $3 shirt at a vintage shop, and they actively look down on anyone who pays retail as being foolish or shallow.
Right.
It's the exact same destructive energy of pride, just wearing a slightly more bohemian mask.
Exactly. The ego doesn't care what it uses to feel superior as long as it gets to feel superior. So, if we want to dismantle this, if mine is the trigger word for pride, the practical solution begins with how we language our own reality.
How we language it.
Yeah. The human mind comically attaches defensive pride to absolutely anything prefixed by the word mine. The moment that thrift store find becomes my shirt, it suddenly possesses immense ego value, and you feel called upon to defend your taste.
So the practical move is linguistic. We start training ourselves to change how we label things internally. We start replacing my with a. It's not my shirt, it's just a shirt.
Yes.
But where this gets really profound is when we apply it to our internal world, like our thoughts and our beliefs.
This is where true liberation happens. Every historical atrocity, every war, and nearly every personal mistake we ever make is based on defending an opinion. Yet we constantly go to war over my opinion.
But if we step back and view our thoughts as just an opinion, or our deeply held values as simply preferences that we enjoy, the entire feeling tone of our interactions changes.
It softens completely.
Right. If someone questions why you listen to a certain type of music or follow a specific diet, and you aggressively say, because this is the right way, you are implying that you are superior to them.
Which instantly triggers their resentment and invites an argument.
Exactly. But if you simply say, I do it because I enjoy it, there's absolutely nothing for them to argue with. You don't need to defend the music you love. You are completely protected by your own quiet reverence for it.
When you aren't taking a rigid, prideful stance, you grant yourself the liberty to change your mind as new facts emerge. This is the ultimate safety of the open mind, what Zen traditions call the beginner's mind.
The beginner's mind. I love that.
Letting go of pride unlocks the door to receiving the help, the feedback, and the new information that is most beneficial to your growth, rather than being boxed into defending a lost cause simply to save face.
So to synthesize this entire journey for you listening today, if we want to move from just theorizing about spiritual growth to actually living it, we have to recognize the chain.
The whole chain.
We have to stop blocking our own success with the desperate, energy-draining force of desire. We have to stop poisoning our physical bodies and our closest relationships with anger and the emotional blackmail of unspoken expectations.
Right.
And we have to consciously drop the heavy, exhausting armor of pride by loosening our ego's grip on the word mine. We can simply stop fighting the cliff face.
We can. And as we close, I want to leave you with the final thought to mull over today, drawn directly from one of the most beautiful metaphors in Hawkins' work.
Oh, please do.
Consider a flower that is only half unfolded. When you look at that flower, you don't judge it. You don't think it is an imperfect flower that needs defending or that you need to pry its petals open to fix it.
Right. You understand that it is proceeding with precise perfection according to cosmic laws.
Wow.
What if every single situation in your life right now, including the relationships causing you anger, or the deep desires that are currently unfulfilled, is actually part of that exact same perfect evolutionary process? What if nothing is actually wrong, and your only real job is to simply stop resisting the unfoldment?
Stop resisting the perfection of the unfoldment. I want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take these mechanics out into your week. Notice your desires, watch closely for your hidden expectations, try dropping the word mine from your vocabulary just for a day, and practice these surrenders. You might just find you don't have to climb the cliff face after all, you just have to let go of the heavy backpack. We'll see you next time.